Okay, Mark meets Alan Long, Creative Director at Sane Able. Hi Alan.
Hi Alan.
Can you give us a very quick summary of your career to date?
Yeah, I started off, I got picked up at the DNAD actually for a web project that I was working on. And
what year was this roughly?
This it must be about 10 years ago now. Yeah, about 10 years ago, so a long time. Seems a long time. And I kind of wanted to go into a small agency because I always knew I wanted to set up my own thing and actually run a design company and kind of do the bigger picture instead of just working on one. And so I actively looked for small companies. I got offered a job at a small company called PKD. It was focused lots on the music industry, and it was great. I mean, I got offered a web development job. It's not really what I wanted to go into. There was all the cliches of kind of web developers, but
so it's early 2000s.
This is early 2002, yeah, and there was still lots of there was this stigma about sort of web design of being these old people sat in rooms that kind of used to be accountants and then decided they could design. And I never wanted to go into it, but actually it's where the market went, and it was actually quite a good decision. I learned an awful lot by working in a small company. I learned the client stuff, I learned the budget somewhat. I didn't really get too much side of that, but I understood what was going on, sort of time management, dealing with lots of different projects at once. It meant that because it was quite a small company, there was lots happening that I was involved in, which was a great decision to kind of do, thankfully.
Okay, so after there,
I was always freelancing, which I think it's a design thing you do, and it's kind of accepted that in most companies you will kind of freelance, being most accepted, so it doesn't affect your day job really. And I kind of got to a point when there was a couple of us working on projects, and there was a critical mass when we was getting too much work to actually do in the evenings, and we was actually not being able to get enough done in terms of clients, and they were having to wait longer, and projects were taken instead of being happy. The clients were getting larger, so they wanted them done a bit quicker. And it reached a point when I thought actually I've got to the stage where I've learned pretty much as much as I can from that company, and if I don't take the jump now, I'm not going to. And I got offered, about 2 days before I left, I got offered another kind of job at a big kind of charity organisation, which made me think about whether I should actually go back into another company. But I decided that I'd made the choice, and now was the time to do it. And if I don't do it, I can always go and get another job afterwards, and actually it's paid off really well, so I'm glad I didn't just look at the money side of stuff.
So Sane Able have been around for how long?
They've been around for 5 years this year, and we're growing rapidly. We just moved into new offices. We've managed to keep, thankfully, the kind of ethos and idea behind the company of working with lots of different sort of sectors, over lots of different projects, and also the idea of keeping the creative side outside of client sort of stuff. That we found that, especially as the longer I stayed at the company, I found actually you get pretty staid. You work with the same sort of, you can learn processes, you know how to do stuff quicker, how to get through, how to answer briefs, what the client wants, and that's all good. But it also means you can tend to go down the same route too often. And so one of the things we wanted to set up with Sane Able was that we actually have personal time. So on a Friday, we always have our own projects that the designers or the developers, they have basically a day they can use as resources within the company to actually do a project that is for them. It's not for anyone else. So it's very different creating for yourself. It's always harder, but it also means that you justify it to yourself, which is you're the most critical, and actually it doesn't matter. Sometimes clients want one thing and you don't always agree with them. Sometimes they're right, mostly they're not, but hey. But you kind of get to do it for yourself, which it means that you can be much more creative without the sort of strict guidelines of sort of briefs and clients.
How do you think the industry has changed since you first entered to now?
I think it's changed quite a lot. I think it's an awful lot quicker. I mean, when I first started, we was doing brochures and branding and trying to sell in a website on the side. And now it's switched completely on its head. And now you're doing a website and you're trying to sell them a brochure on the side as well. And I think it just changes so much. I think it's so quick in terms of, I think even in the last 3 to 4 years, it's really with technology and with even in terms of development and code and sort of applications. I mean, we was talking about yesterday how there's lots more smaller applications and people are sort of fighting against even things like Photoshop. There's lots more smaller compact apps that are much more sort of aimed at a certain market. And I think people are finding their feet more, that actually they're realising you don't need to go to big companies. Small is actually better if they can give you the sort of, if they can give you more for your money in a way. And I think that's changing across design companies, across app developers, across kind of software. I think it's a big change, and it can happen so quickly now.
What advice would you give people who are looking to get into the industry today?
Advice, that's always a hard one. Look for something you're going to enjoy, definitely. I think that's a big one. If you're not enjoying it, they're doing something wrong. And if you're at a company you're not enjoying, I don't mean on a kind of a basis of like once every month you get annoyed and throw a tantrum. I mean more kind of if you're every day you go in and don't think this is right, you should change it. I think one big thing is have a breadth of different stuff in your portfolio. Definitely don't overcomplicate it. The last thing we look at is a really complex portfolio. What we want to do is when someone's sending us stuff is to actually get down to the crux and see what they like, what their personality is, what their work's like, what they work best in, what their strengths are. And a nice portfolio or clever site might be good, but actually it can be quite annoying when you're kind of looking at stuff. The other one is we don't put a great deal on sort of CVs or covering letters. That we normally get page and page cover letters, which we hardly ever read. I mean, we had some hilarious ones in the last job. I won't go into that just in case I'm watching. But we don't really look at that. We look straight at the work because we find you can tell an awful lot more, and then we go back to sort of the CV just to sort of have a look at stuff. But it's really about the portfolio and keeping it simple and showing your energy as well. And I think in the interview process, it gets down to that's the sort of personality thing. We have lots of people that come in that you say that are amazing designers and you can tell they work really hard, but actually when you ask them what they do as a personal thing, there's nothing outside of design. And I think it's good to have stuff outside of the design community. Have friends that aren't designers, go to stuff that is not design based. Don't just buy design books, buy other books, and have some sort of personality around it really.
Sane Able are a fairly small agency. How important is personality and cultural fit?
A lot. We've had various different people, and you can normally tell if they're going to fit the ethos really. And that's a big thing, that the design will take you so far, but you can see when someone's got talent, and then it's actually whether they're going to fit in, whether they're going to kind of not just the ethos of our clients, but also the company of wanting to do something different or be creative on their own time. And it is a big thing, and you can tell quite quickly whether they're going to fit really.
Who are your design heroes? Who do you look up to?
My design heroes. I'd have to say it was Brody. Is always one from university and kitchen as well. I just loved the typography, and that was saying that kind of we had a lecturer who was really into his typography, and he was into Schwitters and typography, and he really instilled the beauty of typography. So I think kitchen's probably my bigger one. I think that I've kind of kept and sort of always look at.
If you weren't in this industry, what do you think you'd be doing?
Same as everyone, same as every other designer, I'd be an architect. I don't know, it seems to be the standard question. I think just seeing your work on a massive scale and just what you can do, the sort of the solidness and the time as well, I think, of architects. I think it would be architecture. If not, I'm not sure really. Apart from that, no, I think it'd be an architect.
What are your interests outside of work?
I don't have any. No, I do.
It's a really boring person.
Yeah, exactly. I just work. I love cycling. I've just cycled to Berlin, which was quite nice. It was a big push, and it was a sort of physical thing to get over. I'm also just having a child, so that's a big thing. And relaxing at weekends is I find a lot. We've just got a dog, and that walking that, and sort of just actually switching off. And then it's projects, sort of setting personal projects that there's one we've launched where we do IP protection, and that was kind of a side project that I'd done at home in my own time. But I had the usual reading, but I think, probably just trying to relax and get out of that work mode really and give your mind a rest.
Obviously, apart from Sane and Able, which agencies in the world would you love to work for and why?
I mean, I would probably like the advertising agencies, so I think probably more sort of the advertising sector, because I think they could do some really interesting stuff, and it's less about the sort of design side of things as much. It's more about the actual the ideas behind it and the philosophy and how you get to it. The execution at the end is not always, it's always done really well, but it's more about the concept behind it. So I think a sort of that, I don't know really as actual agencies, but definitely sort of the advertising sector.
And what about client side? What about brands? Are there certain brands out there that you think are really kind of pushing the boundaries, doing stuff differently?
Brands that do stuff differently. I'm trying to think. I think there's lots. I think more the sort of small companies in London. There's lots of these sort of boutiques like Beach and Good Hood. There's lots around. I'm trying to think of some. In sort of Carnaby, there's always these sort of. I mean, Diesel's one that always seems to sort of push stuff as well. And Nike, but I don't know. I think Nike they've always got lots of sort of lots of side stuff going on that doesn't naturally link to their brand, which I find really interesting, that they push themselves in very different sectors, and that is to kind of get the market and get into sort of sectors they're not into. But I find they experiment an awful lot, and they're not willing to they're willing to fail, so I think that's quite a good brand.
What's the best bit of career advice you've ever been given?
Best bit of career advice I've been given? I think it was, if you're not enjoying it, then you're doing something wrong. And I think that's something to bear in mind, that you should be enjoying it, you should have humour in your work, you should love what you do, and if not, you're either in the wrong career, or you're in the wrong job, or you're doing the wrong projects. And I think to actually look at yourself and say, right, is this making me happy? Because I think that, at the end of it, the money goes so far, but money is money, and if you wanted money, you wouldn't have gone into design, you would go into sales. So I think enjoying it and making sure you enjoy your sort of environment and the company you work at and the clients you're working on, really.
What's the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you in your career to date?
How long have we got?
Is there anything you look back on and go, God, I was so young and naive, or I wish I'd done it differently?
Well, I look back, it's quite funny when you look back at old work. I was backing up recently one of my old computers and went back over some of the projects and saw that, and just that was pretty bad. When you look at it and think, wow, I thought that was a bee's knees, that was amazing stuff. And you look now and think, oh dear, I can't believe I sort of stood behind it. And some of the arguments that I must have thought in my first job of kind of, I'm right. And then I look back and just think, it wasn't as good as I expected it was. And then I recently had a client that read an email that was on my screen, which turned a bit of a sour relationship. I can look back and laugh, but I don't know if they can.
Was it about them, or was it?
It was about them, yes.
Oh
yes.
my God.
Which was, it's one of those things. It happens. There's nothing you can do. But yeah, maybe close your screen. That's a good bit of advice if you're doing a meeting.
What's the best brand you've had the pleasure of working on?
Best brand? It's weird. I've kind of had big ones, like we've worked with lots of sort of kind of technology ones through other PR agencies, which were really good in terms of the sort of work we could do. The interesting one was Pretty Green, mainly for sort of the background and where we could take it and the thinking we could apply to it. And then one of the big ones was Brasserie Blanc, which actually we had a lot of input, that we were given lots of interesting projects. There was an awful lot of different facets to it, whether it was posters or websites or small promotions, and there was always something happening, that they're always promoting themselves or putting on different events or different sort of in-store stuff. So there was lots of stuff happening with that. So that was a really interesting one, because it kind of covered lots of stuff, and being able to see a campaign through on many different levels of kind of different applications, that's always quite fun.
Okay, let's move on to a quick fire round. One word answers. Can Lion or D&AD pencil?
Huh? D&AD pencil.
Okay. Olympic gold medal or an Oscar?
Medal.
The brightest person you've worked with?
Me.
The most creative person you've worked with?
I'd have to say Mike Robbins, my old lecturer at university.
And the best looking person you've worked with?
I'd have to say my fiancée, because I'm getting in trouble for that one.
Where did you work with her?
We actually share offices at the moment, which doesn't end in too many arguments, so it's quite good.
Creatives or suits?
Creatives.
Apple or Android?
That's not even a question, Apple.
Ant or Deck?
I don't know which one's which, so I just say Deck.
Spice Girls or Girls Aloud?
Spice Girls.
Very quick on that.
Yeah, exactly. That's my era, unfortunately.
Facebook or Twitter?
Twitter.
Favourite flavour crisps?
It would have to be kettle chips, salt and vinegar.
Take That or Westlife?
I'm not going to answer that one.
Very quick though on Spice Girls or Girls Aloud.
Yeah, exactly. That's allowed. That's doable.
Degree or no degree?
I don't think it matters really. I think it's portfolio.
Art directors or copywriters?
Art directors.
The Only Way is Essex or Made in Chelsea?
Neither.
Retained work or pitch work?
Retained work.
Web or mobile?
I think mobile.
Independent agencies or networked agencies?
What was that one saying?
Independent agencies.
Yeah, independent agencies.
Outsourced production or on-site production?
On-site most of the time.
Don Draper or Roger Sterling?
Roger Sterling.
Interesting. And lastly, twist or stick?
Twist.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.